Counter-Strike 2 in 2026 is not just a video game. It is a tax on the human soul. It is the 5 strangers entering a shared experiment when one person thinks they are Nikola Tesla of utility. One guy bought a Deagle on a round 2 for reasons unknown to science. One person's microphone sounds like it was recovered from a Cold War submarine. And somehow this continues to be one of the best competitive games ever made. This is a game where one bullet can end a round, one smoke can change history, and one teammate typing "nice" after you lose 1v1 can alter your DNA. And in 2026, Counter-Strike 2 is in a weird place. A fascinating place, occasionally stupid place. A place where the game is cleaner, prettier, and in many ways more modern than the version it replaced, but also still has the unmistakable spiritual energy of a game originally assembled in a lab by people who believe fun should be earned through mild suffering. Today I want to talk about what CS actually is in 2026. Not the patch note hallucination, not the Reddit civil war, not the guy on YouTube with a thumbnail where he's pointing at a smoke grenade like it contains the cure for a disease. I mean the real thing. What it feels like, why people still play it, why people can't quit it, why every match feels like both a chess tournament and a public boss fight, and why Counter-Strike, despite everything, remains one of the purest multiplayer experiences ever created. Also, at some point, I need to talk about the economy system, because whoever invented the concept of losing one round and entering a 4-round financial depression was either a genius or a supervillain. And no, I'm not going to cover the topic about gambling in CS2. Won't be discussing skins, how to acquire them, external gambling sites, and all the scams going on. I'm not opening that can of worms. I have already made a video about it. You can find it on my channel if you want. We are talking about CS2 in 2026 as it is. So first, what is Counter-Strike 2 in 2026? At its core, it's still Counter-Strike. Terrorists, counter-terrorists, bomb sites, economy, utility, angles, timing, aim, decision making, regret. That's important, because all of the engine changes, visual changes, subtic discourse, smoke tech, map pool shifts, and community meltdowns, the heart of Counter-Strike remains untouched. And that heart is simple: you die fast. You get punished hard. Your mistakes are visible. And unlike many modern shooters, there's absolutely nowhere to hide from the consequence of being dumb.
Bro, you got the fuse kit. You got the fuse kit.
Bro, you have
Actually in
shit,
front of you.
Bro,
Jesus fucking Christ.
Bro, what?
There's no ultimate ability to save you. There's no heroic grapple escape. There's no magical wall scan vision. There's just your crosshair placement, your movement, your utility, your team coordination, and the crushing realization that yes, you really did wide swing and AWP holding the angle for 6 full seconds. This is Counter-Strike, it is brutally honest. And in 2026, CS2 has settled into its own identity more than it had at launch. The early years were full of comparison. Does it feel like Go? Why does every update fix 3 things and create a new form of inconvenience? But by 2026, the conversation is less about whatever CS2 is a replacement and more about the fact that this is Counter-Strike now, for better and for worse. This is the version the scene lives in. This is the version tournaments are built around. This is the version players grind. This is the version you boot up at 1 AM saying one game, like a liar. The genius of Counter-Strike is that it's mechanically simple and at the same time absolutely diabolical. A Mirage A execute is not just throw utility and enter. It is a theater. It is ritual, it is geometry. It is a coordinated attempt to force 5 defenders into 30 on-the-spot bad decisions. And when it works, Counter-Strike feels transcendent, not cinematic in the fake blockbuster sense. Cinematic in the way sports are cinematic. Because you know it could go wrong at any second. That's the magic. Counter-Strike creates tension out of fragility. One missed flash, one late rotate, one greedy repeat, one reload at the wrong time, one small gap that exists because the universe hates confidence. And suddenly the whole round collapses like a folding chair. That fragility is why rounds feel meaningful, and meaningful rounds are why people keep coming back. Now let's talk about the 2026 state of the game. CS2 in 2026 feels more stable than its rougher periods, more established, and generally more coherent as a modern platform. It is a game where the community will absolutely spend 4 hours optimizing radar scale, jump binds, crosshair gaps, interrupt arguments, launch options, chair height, stock composition, and moon phase alignment to gain a 0.4% improvement in confidence. This is not a mockery, that's culture. Counter-Strike players don't just play the game, They inhabit it. They build routines around it. Warm-up maps, aim training, demo reviews, sensitivity debates that sound like the theological console, arguments over whether a specific sticker craft improves recoil control through vibes alone. And yes, by 2026, map scripting on the creator's side is also becoming more interesting. Coverage around the recent updates highlight Valve adding more workshop scripting capability, including save data, and more input or damage related hooks for maps, which matters a lot for custom content. This matters because Counter-Strike survives not just on esports, but on obsession, on communities, on the weird laboratory energy of people who look at tactical shooter and think, what if I made training map that teaches pre-fire discipline with the emotional tone of a Soviet math exam? That's beautiful. That's civilization.
Let's go.
Mid.
I need to talk about the money. Counter-Strike's economy remains one of the biggest systems in competitive gaming because it turns every round into 2 games at once. The firefight and the spreadsheet. You are never just trying to win the current round, you're trying to shave the next 3. And that's genius, because it means every decision has layers. Do we force? Do we save? Do we half-buy? Do we buy 3 rifles and 1 guy becomes utility goblin? Do we hunt? Do we preserve armor? Do we drop for the AWPer? Even though he is currently 3 and 11 and spiritually somewhere else, probably listening to music. Economy creates narrative. Comebacks feel real because they require substance. Dominance feels earned because it compounds. Chaos feels hilarious because one failed anti-eco can convert a stable team into a traveling circus. And anti-ecos, by the way, remain one of the most fragile experiences in gaming. You have rifles, you have pistols. Statistically this should be simple. But what anti-eco actually means is, you will walk into a stack. Someone will get two-tapped by a man crouching inside the smoke with a weapon purchased for the price of a supermarket sandwich. The bomb will fall into the exact square kilometer of the map you did not clear. And your entire team's comms will instantly transform into a courtroom drama. Why are we peeking? Why we are alone? Who's watching flank? Why do they always do this? They're probably cheating. Because it is Counter-Strike. Because game feeds uncertainty. Because every time you say, this should be free, the server hears you and begins writing your downfall. This is one of the best things about CS2 in 2026. No amount of technical polish can remove the fundamental absurdity of humans under pressure trying to execute plans with incomplete information. That absurdity is the content. The shooting in Counter-Strike still has a sacred, terrifying weight to it. Weapons are not merely tools. They are social contracts. The AK says, if I hit the shot, you disappear. The M4 says, I'm responsible, measured, domesticated, and still fully capable of ruining your afternoon. The AWP says, I have decided that space itself belongs to me. The Deagle says, I'm there about to create a montage in the way that cannot be edited out. The Mac-10 says, economics is fake, and violence is now. And what makes CS2 gunplay special is that every weapon has consequences that are immediately liable. You feel positioning, you feel movement inaccuracy, you feel when your spray control is disciplined, and when it becomes a dance. This is where Counter-Strike remains elite. When you lose a fight, you can usually trace the reason. Maybe not emotionally. Emotionally you will blame a lag, your chair, server ping, enemy bloodline, and probably atmospheric conditions. But mechanically, the game is often telling you something real. Your crosshair was low, your movement wasn't settled, you exposed yourself to 2 angles, you swung without support, you took the fight on their terms. That feedback loop is why improvement feels addictive. Counter-Strike does not flatter you, it reveals you. And unfortunately, what it reveals is often devastating. Now for the most important 2026 feature, other people. Counter-Strike Solo Queue is still one of the most deranged social systems ever put online. You load in with 4 strangers and immediately begin a temporary workplace simulation.
You this bomb spawn.
What?
You spawn this bomb.
No.
Yeah.
Boys, calm down, calm down.
You
Just calm down.
spawn this bomb.
Just play the game.
You
Calm
spawn
down.
this bomb.
No.
Check the demo. You spawn this bomb.
Okay, sorry.
Doesn't matter. Where nobody applied for their role and nobody agrees on the measurement structure. Round 1, silence. Round 2, one guy says rush B. Round 3, someone is already typing paragraph. Round 4, your top fragger and bottom fragger in a dispute have everyone's shit in your team. By round 6, there is a father of 2 from another country. That's me. I'm the father of 2. A teenager eating chips directly into his microphone. A guy who only speaks to insult the smoke timing, and one mysterious player who communicates entirely perfect utility and no words at all, like a tactical ninja. This should not work. And yet, sometimes it does. Sometimes solo queue produces that rare miracle. 5 random people suddenly align. Comms are clean, rotations are crisp, drops are offered, nobody ego peaks after plant, a flash comes in exactly when needed. Someone says nice try and means it. For 12 shining rounds, civilization exists. Then your internet hiccups, the momentum dies. One person force buys an exam for reasons last understood during the Egyptian times, and the whole project returns to the sea. This is not a flaw in Counter-Strike. This is the Counter-Strike. The game is a pressure chamber for personality, and in 2026, despite every advancement in matchmaking, discourse, ranked discussions, and platform debates, the emotional center of the game is still that fragile social chemistry between teammates who have never met and may never meet again. It's part tactical shooter, part improv comedy, part hostage situation. Counter-Strike in 2026 also continues to benefit from something many multiplayer games would kill for. It's incredibly watchable. Even people who don't play much can understand the basics. Bomb planted, numbers advantage, retake coming in, one player hiding in the smoke like a Victorian ghost, time running out, everyone loses their minds. The spectator clarity is one of its superpowers. There is no overload of visual nonsense. Compared with many ability shooters, the stakes are readable, the win conditions are clean. And because rounds are short and lethal, tension resets constantly. That makes esports matter, the direct way. Pro play doesn't feel like a separate game. It feels like the apex form of the same language regular players speak badly in matchmaking. You watch a top team clear angles with machine precision and think, yes, I do understand this concept. Then you queue into Premiere and dry swing mid with a flash in your hand like a cursed pilgrim. That gap between knowledge and execution is a huge part of Counter-Strike's charm. The game is easy to understand and brutally hard to perfect, which means watching pros doesn't alienate players. It inspires them or deludes them, often both. And because the strategic language of Counter-Strike is so stable, moments can become immortal. Clutch in Counter-Strike feels timeless because the game doesn't need gimmick to produce drama. It just needs stakes, precision, and one person who believes harder than physics. My wife is a good example. She doesn't play any computer games. She doesn't miss any CS majors. Not just because I'm watching, because she's enjoying the event itself. And she's absolute fangirl of simple. Sound in Counter-Strike is outrageous. It is not audio, it is a prophecy. A single footstep in the wrong place can cause a full defensive rotation, a team-wide identity crisis. And one guy who starts saying it's B, it's B, it's B, with the confidence of men receiving divine revelation. Sound cues in CS are so influential that the entire match becomes a symphony of suspicion. Every dropped gun is a rumor. Every reload is a gossip. Every scope sound is a public announcement that somewhere on the map, freedom has ended. You're not just listening in Counter-Strike, you're interpreting signs. You hear one set of the step and begin constructing a theory of enemy intent like a detective in a murder novel. Half the game is aim. The other half is deciding whether the audio cue means 5 people are about to explode through the smoke or one guy jumped accidentally while eating yogurt. There are probably players in 2026 who know their own family members less intimately than they know the sound of a CT dropping from heaven on nuke. And that's the part of what makes Counter-Strike so immersive, without needing fake immersion systems. The game doesn't need cinematic story delivery, it creates story through inference. We also need to talk about the endless obsession with the setup culture, because in Counter-Strike deserves anthropology study. In 2026 players still tweak configs, binds, aliases, radar setups, byte binds, crosshairs, video settings, and auto-exec files like they're preparing a Formula 1 car. That remains normal and broadly supported. What changes is the hard line against using scripts to automate multiple core inputs on official servers. A ship described across current scripting guides discussing Valve's 2024 changes. And honestly, this distinction makes sense. Counter-Strike should let you customize your interface and workflow. It should not let you compress execution skills into one magic button and call it muscle memory. So, the 2026 scripting conversation is less how do I automate the game and more how do I optimize clarity and consistency. That means useful, legal things, byte binds, radar scaling, practice configs, view model preference, training routines, QoL aliases, server setup commands, all the weird little rituals players used to make the game feel like home. This is one of the most beautiful and ridiculous things about CS community. Everybody is looking for the final form of comfortable, the perfect sensitivity, the perfect resolution, the perfect bob setting, the perfect crosshair that is somehow visible in bright areas, dark areas, smoke edges, chaos, panic, and during the exact moment your confidence leaves your body. The truth, of course, is that no setting can fix fear, no config can save bad spacing, no alias make you clear close right. But the ritual matters, because ritual creates readiness. The readiness in Counter-Strike is half the battle. There was a long period where the dominant conversation around CS2 was feel. And fair enough, and Counter-Strike players are sensitive to that feel. This is community that can detect 2% shift in timing and respond like farmers noticing a bad harvest. When the game is built around such a tiny margin, feel is not imaginary, it matters. Responsiveness matter. Movement feel matter. Shot feedback matter. The confidence to take a duel depends on whatever the game feels legible. But by 2026, the importance of the decision has changed. Not disappeared, changed. Because now the generation of players has spent enough time in CS2 that this is no longer a temporary comparison space. This is home court. Players have learned its rhythm, built muscle memory around it, developed instincts inside it. So the conversation becomes less, is this the old game? And more, what kind of game is this? When taken on its own terms. And on its own terms, CS2 in 2026 is still one of the sharpest competitive shooters you can play. Demanding and occasionally makes you rage. One of the sneaky reasons Counter-Strike survives forever is maps. Not just because maps provide variety, because maps in Counter-Strike become personal mythology. Everybody has opinion. Dust2 loyalists, Inferno philosophers, Mirage Q prisoners, Ancient truthers, Nuke enjoyers who want verticality and confusion, Anubis ones who seem to have accepted suffering as a lifestyle aesthetic. Maps in Counter-Strike are not backgrounds, they are argument generators. Every corner becomes memory, every angle becomes a habit. Every smoke lineup becomes a form of inheritance passed from one stressed out player to another. And over time, maps stop being places and become identities. You don't just play Inferno, you enter the church of banana control. You participate in a centuries-old dispute over whether your teammate understands how to hold A after taking mid. You witness again and again the miracle of a B-side defender somehow getting 2 kills and still losing the round. This connection between players and maps is one reason workshop and map scripting support matters too. When Valve expands scripting tools for creators, it potentially enriches the ecosystem around training, experiments, and custom experience. Even if that doesn't directly change official matchmaking fundamentals, Counter-Strike is geography under pressure. It turns architecture into emotion. Here's the real reason Counter-Strike 2 still matters in 2026. When it's good, it's untouchable. A perfect retake, a 1 vs 2 clutch, a read on the enemy stack, a smoke that lands exactly right, a flash that blooms and your teammate swings on it instantly. A low-buy win that breaks enemy economy. And most importantly, enemy spirit. A comeback from 11-3 because somebody finally remembered discipline exists. Nothing feels quite like it. Not because it's flashy, because it's earned. Counter-Strike's best moments feel so good because the game is so willing to make you look stupid. Triumph has weight because failure is real. The game does not shield you from embarrassment, it exhibits you. And so when things click, the satisfaction is enormous. You're not just winning, you're solving, you're synchronizing. You're imposing order on chaos for 20 seconds at a time. That feeling does not age. Graphics can age, interface can age, community complaints can mutate into a new and exciting species, but the feeling of a clean Counter-Strike round remains immortal. So what is Counter-Strike 2 in 2026? It is mature, still evolving, still argued over, still occasionally absurd, and still one of the purest competitive games ever made. It is a game about discipline, pretending to be a game about shooting. Game about teamwork disguised as a game where your teammate buys Zeus on a full eco and calls it tech. Game about information, restraint, timing and nerve. A game that can make you feel like a tactical genius one round and the roaming idiot in the next round. Its scripting culture is still alive where it makes sense. Configs, aliases, binds, quality of life customization, while official anti-automation rules have narrowed to old 1K does everything fantasy. At the same time, the border CS2 platform keeps evolving for creators through workshop-oriented scripting additions. That combination feels very 2026. Keep the competitive core harsh and honest. Let players customize the edges, and slowly expand the sandbox around the main event. Counter-Strike 2 is not perfect. If anything, imperfection is part of its brand identity. But perfection was never the point. The point is tension. The point is clarity. The point is that every round asks, are you actually composed? Are you actually coordinated? Are you actually better? Or were you just feeling confident in warm-up? And that's why people still play. That's why people still watch. That's why people still care enough to argue about smokes, peeker's advantage, economy calls, map pool philosophy, and whether their teammates are legally accountable for pushing through utility with a bomb. Counter-Strike endures because it understands something simple. Competition is most compelling when the rules are clear, the stakes are immediate, and the excuses are terrible. Anyway, that's Counter-Strike 2 in 2026. A masterpiece. My green. A tactical sandbox. A social experiment. And a legally distinct method of converting free time into emotional weather. If you've been away from CS, 2026 is a fascinating time to look at it again. If you never left, first of all, I respect your commitment to the bit. Second, please drink water. And remember, the next time your teammate says, "Trust me," before a force buy, you're no longer in a match. You're in literature. On that note, Rums out. See you in next one.